Hello and welcome everybody. We'll get started in a minute or two, just allowing some time for any late joiners to log in. Makes a nice change because I'm normally late for most of my calls, so it is a nice feeling for me at least once in my life. And again, welcome to anybody joining. We'll get started shortly. Okay, I think we got enough, so we'll get going. Welcome to this webinar, and it's great that you've joined us today. The session is Cognizant and Safeguard Global, Unlocking the Hidden Secrets of Payroll with Workday. Thank you for taking the time to join us if you're joining us live, but if you're watching the recording, also thank you for that as well. I'm Danny Rice. I lead the UK Workday Payroll Product Management team. It's one of our native countries at Workday in terms of the offerings we have. Currently, we're growing very fast in terms of the functionally rich product we're producing and also our customer base. However, we aren't here to talk about that today. As I have the pleasure of kicking things off, and just wanted to start by saying a little bit about Safeguard and Cognizant as well, who are very much in this session today with us. So Safeguard are a great partner who operate on the global stage, supporting many Workday customers. They've got a diverse global population, integrating their various products with the Workday technology. They've got an awesome track record of making Workday customers successful in the global space. It's something they're very passionate about. They have services covering over 170 countries and specialists in 150 of them. Cognizant, again, another great partner with Workday, supporting thousands of Workday customers across the large and the medium enterprise space. They bring masses of experience with them, with over 1,700 experts right across the full life cycle from deployment to post-production, and very much offering a one-stop shop in terms of the solutions they can offer. In terms of the session today, as I mentioned, it is a combined session. It's not just Workday. We've got Cognizant and Safeguard. And I'll let Sean, Neil and David introduce themselves.
Lovely, thank you, Danny. So good morning, everyone. My name is Sean Ormston, and I'm a HCM Principal Solution Consultant with Workday.
Thanks, Sean. I'm the EVP, Neil Carpenter at Safeguard, with over 20 years experience in the global payroll space, helping organizations large and small with payroll transformations, plus being a Workday user ourselves and an exclusive Workday Select partner. We're helping over hundreds of Workday customers with their optimization and transformation of the global payroll operations. Thank you all for attending today.
Thanks, Neil. Hello, everybody. My name is David Lane. I'm part of Cognizant. I'm part of our HR transformation and strategy group. So we support a lot of clients with implementing new implementations of Workday, or actually looking to optimize clients that are already live on the Workday platform.
Brilliant. Thank you, guys. In addition, we also have Joy and Raquel who are going to be helping answer questions in the background, which segues me nicely to the question section. So yeah, a quick piece of housekeeping. So in the right-hand side of the webinar window, as shown on the screen here, you should have a little question mark, and you can access this to actually type questions through to us. Please do feel free to ask any questions you may have, regardless of what they are. You know, they do make the session a lot more valuable for all involved. And again, you know, it's what we're here to do is to give value to you for attending. There's no Q&A at the end of this session, so please do ask and don't wait, because you will miss out. And again, as I said, we're here to answer questions and to help. So in terms of the session today, there's a lot of great content. There'll be a lot to take away to think about. So the sort of 5 sections we're going through will be global payroll analysis, trends by Cognizant, Workday, your single source of the truth, best practices for consolidating your data, employee experience and user adoption, and summary and wrap up. So I'm going to hand over to David now.
Brilliant, thanks, Danny. So I say I work for Cognizant, which you may know as Collaborative Solutions. We're actually just merging with Cognizant, and we're taking on a lot of the branding now. But this was what I'm showing you on the slide was a survey we did as Cognizant back in 2022, the tail end of 2022, talking to a lot of business leaders around what their priorities were in order to be future ready, in order to be considered a modern business. And one of the things I think you're going to find out as we go through this webinar is a lot of the challenges and some of the things that we're looking at in global payroll are just part of a subset of the same trends we're seeing across the organization. So rather than draining everything that's on the slides here, if you just look at some of the key themes that actually crop up. So having data-driven operations, big data is a big thing. You'll hear us talk a lot around that in terms of getting your payroll data all in one place. And then some of the things you can do with it in terms of the advanced analytics and some of the decision making it can drive to. So it's evidence-based rather than being more like than just guesswork. A digital first model. We're really pushing strongly around digital transformations. So, but not all transformations are the same. Starting out in the right way, looking at it holistically, looking at end-to-end, being clear from the start what your objectives are, what pain points you're going to solve. That's important. So not all digital transformations are the same, but it's clearly going down that digital first model is impacting right across your organization, not just in what's happening within global payroll. Move to cloud computing, implementing Workday, those sort of things. It drives a modern experience. It actually drives and enables flexibility and the expanded use of automation and AI. You can see those sort of things coming up there. And again, one of the things that came through really strongly in the surveys was that 90% of the business leaders we actually spoke to talked around the data-driven approach is critical to what they want to do. That holistic end-to-end approach is critical, so everything's connected together. And that digital-first approach is kind of what they think is going to stand them in good stead for the future. So, not really sure, if you look at some of the other ones in there, not sure how quantum computing is going to impact on payroll just yet, or virtual reality, but it might. I'm always surprised about what some of the creativity that people come up with, so I'm not going to rule anything out. But if you want to dive down into the next slide and talk around some specific things that come out in payroll trends, one of the things that actually comes up is going to be around the move to cloud-based payroll solutions. So what we're really talking around there is solutions like Workday, like Safeguard that are out in the cloud. The demand continues to grow. So they're a part of these broader digital transformations. Employee expectations are there, they're higher than ever, they want this. So it drives the modern employee experience. It's a modern UI, it allows self-service, it puts all your items in one place rather than have separate applications. So even a simple example like putting your pay slips so that they're available in Workday. So again, it drives the overall employee experience because it's an expectation now. People just expect it to be there rather than it being something that's new or innovative. So you've got to be looking at those sort of things, and the flexibility a cloud solution can bring is also key in there. So it allows you to keep up with, especially payroll, keeps you up with some of the innovations and updates that are coming through, be they compliance driven or otherwise, and removes certain key pain points, which have probably evolved over payroll as it's grown organically with your business. So the second area is really around having a payroll strategy, really around making sure that as payroll's grown and it's grown up with your organization, there's probably people on this call that are spending more of their time firefighting than they are actually thinking strategically around payroll. So when you go into these digital transformations, when you go into your approach, think about the whole thing holistically, think about it end to end. One of the things that I think has been surprising, we did a survey which actually came through quite strongly that showed that few people, or less than 88% of people actually have a global strategy for payroll, and when they actually start with an implementation. So then it's really difficult to take that end-to-end holistic approach if you don't actually have a proper overall plan of what you're going to do. It doesn't have to be a 1,000-page document. It can be quite simple, but if it's clear, got outcomes, been aligned with the different leaders in your organization, to have that big picture and say this is part of a broader plan is really going to help you have that end-to-end integration, allow you to drive some of the efficiencies you actually want to get out of it, rather than being a piecemeal or patchwork quilt approach. So actually allowing that to actually be one of your driving things around your payroll implementation, it then allows you to then move away from just talking about features of what you're going to do in payroll, but look at your operating model and actually then really start driving some of those inefficiencies or those efficiencies or standardizations of streamlining some of your processes and the way you're actually structured. And then the last area on this slide, really talking around compliance and increasing legislation. I think we had a quote from one of our clients, which is along the lines of, it's becoming more complex, yet everyone expects it to be easier. So there's clearly solutions out there that can help you, and we'll touch on some of those today. We'll dive down into some examples within Workday and within Safeguard, but it is becoming complex. Things that surprise payroll operators all the time. We were talking to another client around, they found they were actually, because remote working had now become the trend, the hybrid model had been pushed on them. They were now having to work in countries where they didn't think they were going to be working for a couple of years ago. And it reduces the risk of fines, penalties, and reputational damage. And it's easy to get complacent in this area or put a foot wrong. There's a regular report that comes out from HMRC around people not paying minimum wage, just as an example, and some well-established, well-known names pop up on that through just taking their eye off the ball or making a couple of simple mistakes there. So it's an ever-increasing complex area, and actually having a cloud solution which helps you support those is really, really important. So if we look at the next three, just to close this out before we move on to the next section and dive into Safeguard and Workday. AI and automation. So AI has really been in the news now, but it's been used extensively in what we do already for many years now in terms of how it actually supports and helps what we do within payroll. You can easily think about it in terms of kind of automated workflows and actually error correction. Payroll's brilliant for this sort of thing because it's a repeatable process. So again, it can learn from patterns. You can actually get things actually smoothed out to actually improve your accuracy. The downside of payroll is we're looking at 100% accuracy throughout. That's our goal, right each time, every time. A recent survey that was from 2019 around payroll experience, there's still people, 31% of respondents were getting incorrect pay. Some of them were, about 24% were getting pay late. That's quite surprising in this day and age, but it's something you still have to keep the pressure on to make sure we're striving for that perfection. And the automation and AI tools really help with that. But it's not just in terms of error detection, things like fraud. We're talking to a couple of clients around how they've been using some clever techniques for identifying certain payments or ghost employees and things like that. It really helps with kind of identifying and spotting some of those anomalies. And then one final area, when you talk about natural language processing and AI and being able to respond to end users, people think about it being able to tell you where your payslip is or guide or give advice to end users. It can actually do more than that. There's a chat SG tool the Safeguard have got, which is around giving automated advice around compliance. So it's got information across 170 territories. So it can actually help with some of your compliance challenges as well. And then a favorite area for me is really around data, using it as a strategic asset. One of the things that will come through really strongly here is I'm guaranteed there are people on the call who've got payroll operating in multiple territories in different countries, and it's not being all brought back into one place. So we do a lot of Workday implementations, and one of the big drivers is that one source of the truth, getting everything in one place. And payroll seems to be the laggard around that. It seems to be, we do it for everything else, and sometimes we don't do it for payroll. So hopefully, if nothing else, you get that. One message you'll get here is, your payroll each month is one of the biggest outlays you actually have. So getting that information into one place so you can actually start doing something interesting with it, you can actually start doing some advanced analytics with it. You can even share it with other areas of your business, other areas of finance, or even strategic workforce planning or business organizational redesign type things. This is really important information that would be very useful for guiding some of those decisions and some of the analysis that's there. And I think that's one of the things that will come through really strongly is you can start treating data as a strategic asset. Get it in one place, get rid of those manual errors, and then people can actually start using this information so it's actually help drive your business forward. And then the last area I just want to touch on, it's pretty well established now actually, financial well-being and flexibility. There was nothing like this when I first started actually in work, but it's now pretty well established across many of the clients that we actually talk to, and it's a growing trend across the business when it comes to actually dealing with payroll, dealing with pensions, benefits, that side of information to educate your employees to actually make sure they understand that and they've got a little bit of extra information to actually support them. So I want to put this in there as a growing trend. So it's an example of if you can spend more time on doing this sort of thing if you can get all the back office things working correctly, if your automation's there, if you're getting your payroll data back into Workday, if you're improving that efficiency. So if you're constantly firefighting, this is one of the examples of things that kind of fall by the wayside. And so it's that real added value that actually drives the employee engagement, actually helps with retention, and make sure you can actually move payroll from being essentially a back office function to something that's really strategically powerful for your organization. So gone through that at a fairly high pace there. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to hand over to Neil, Neil and Sean, who are going to dive down into some of the examples within Safeguard and Workday about how they can actually drive home some of these trends.
Thank you, David. Some really great insight there. A few things for me to take away. I mean, technology is moving at such a fast pace, and payroll is a component of some of the changes that are occurring in the world, and obviously the efficiency gains that we can gain from it. So key areas for me are digitalization, automation, compliance, and big data. So really appreciate the insight there, and hopefully that resonates with the audience. I just want to touch on a few things. So today, myself and Sean, we're going to sort of bounce off each other throughout the next component of this webinar. We'll be looking to share why global payroll works best with Workday, discuss some of the common challenges that we both see in the market, and business impact of how you can transform your operation and optimize your investment. We'll be looking to do a live demonstration, which is great, so you can actually get a feel and actually see what the future state experience might look like for anyone that's looking at this or has been through this. So without further ado, let's understand payroll works best as it's part of Workday. So one of the areas that we generally come across is how can I optimize the investment that I've already made. So the power of one, the single source of truth for HR and payroll data to manage benefits, life events, hires and retire. The cool thing about what we've built with Workday in partnership is it's a single code line, and it's pre-configured, so it's already in the application, which has been enhanced over the last 13 years. So really what that's doing is that's really enriching your data capture in Workday, and obviously talking about the technology enhancements and automation and integrations, that application's already built in Workday. It just requires some configuration. When we look at the next component, it's around how do I add efficiency to every process? Because if you operate in multiple locations, in some cases they could have been through acquisition or organic growth, and maybe you started off with a few employees and now it's grown, but you've maintained and kept all the localization and all those manual processes in place. It's difficult to sort of create business continuity plans or global standards. So again, what this really does is, by capturing the data at source means Workday is capturing all your the majority of your build to gross data, which is probably way more than obviously what you're able to achieve today. And obviously by doing so, you're minimizing your manual processes. And to my point a moment ago, you're creating those global standards, which is really what we need to be thinking about. I think everyone felt a bit of the pain around the pandemic, those business continuity plans, massive changes occurring, creating those standards makes it easier to have those continuity plans, and streamlining your processes, and auditing improves, detection and accuracy. And then, it's important for us because, when we look at payroll, it's always been classed as transactional. It's massively evolved now. And the impact it can have to so many different departments and your workforce. So engaging your employees, the question that we always get asked is, how can I increase my employee experience and reduce the HR administration burden on my HR team? Well, again, pushing the payslips back into Workday, and if you utilize the Workday payroll application, it's already built in there. Employees only need to bookmark one interface to request time off, view their payslips, tax documents, etc. And obviously any changes that are applied in Workday, automatically, sync with payroll. And then lastly, the big one, which, obviously David just talked around about data capture and big data. Biggest cost for most organizations is their people. So we want to be able to see all our OPEX costs harmonized and normalized in a single chosen currency, or be able to flex on those currencies against your exchange rates or your budgetary rates, so allowing those payment transactions and analytics to reside in the same system, allowing the real-time view of spend trends at a few clicks of a button. What that really does for organizations is it allows departments to have the same view. So it brings those departments together to analyze that information and look at strategic, initiatives, goals, objectives, or reallocation of workforce to make faster and better decisions for the organization, which obviously in turn have an impact to the business. So I just wanted to highlight some key features there. And now what we're going to do is we're going to break that down. So, the first section that we're going to cover today is, let's talk about the single source of truth. What are the pain points and what is the outcome of capturing data in Workday? So when we look at organizations that aren't leveraging the pre-built certified integration, what are the choices? Integrating payroll and HR data to establish a single source of truth is really quite challenging. With all the different formats, the terminologies, the currencies, the processes between global systems, generally lead to inaccurate and inconsistent data. Lots of reruns, lots of manual processes. And obviously thinking about how do you map and align those various data points leads to discrepancies in gross pay calculations or taxes and benefits. Building an integrated solution for gross data involves APIs, data pipelines, connectors to facilitate sort of seamless data flow between payroll and HR. And this technical complexity requires sufficient investment, which some of you may have been through in terms of resources and costs. And as such, business maintain legacy manual processes, which can lead to risk, errors, and high costs on different departments. But as we've just mentioned, Safeguard and Workday, we've built this over the last 13 years, and it's already built in the application, so it requires configuration. So, if you were to embark on a journey like this and look to drive those efficiencies, what is the business impact to you as an organization? Well, by configuring this, you are creating a single source of truth that eliminates that need of, data entry and multiple sources. This streamlines your processes, reduces a multitude of manual administrative tasks, minimizes the potential risk of error, and the time saved from that manual data handling can really be redirected towards sort of value-added activities. We hear a lot of organizations, that the HR admin team are doing a lot of backfilling and catching up to keep the application maintained because things are happening at a local level. So, it would allow those teams to become more strategic and focus on initiatives in the organization that have greater business impact around employee development, talent acquisition, and ultimately, enhancing your overall efficiency and probably time to pay. So, this also simplifies auditing processes, it creates accuracy, accessibility to, David's point, we all want to get to that data and analyze it, before payroll, so the business impact just in this component alone is sufficient. It includes improved data accuracy, it will streamline your operations and enhance your decision making and make you better, ensure compliance. But let's get into the good stuff. So, without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Sean, who's going to walk you through the Workday environment and show you what this future state might look like for you as an organization.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Neil. And if I could just get a quick yes that the screen has changed and you can see our wonderful safe harbor statement. Perfect. So, so good morning, everyone. I'm really excited to take you through some of these little sort of vignettes that Neil and myself are going to be talking through today. First and foremost, I do need to just flash our safe harbor statement up on the screen. If you've ever had a demonstration or a presentation from us, this would be familiar to yourselves. But it's really just to talk about, bear with me just 1 second, let me just move this out of the way. It's really just to talk about, we've got some future looking statements. If we do reference those, then obviously it is covered by our safe harbor statement. But the good news is that everything is covered and in the product today that you do see. So I'm just going to jump into my user here. This is Logan McNeil. She's an HR business partner, and she is coming in and she's she's doing her day-to-day job, but she wants to get involved. She wants to start to look at certain things and start to understand a little bit more about, the global capabilities. If you're looking to expand your organization, how does that help in terms of, compliance and risk and such, and all that good stuff that Neil's been talking about. But just to start off with, just a little bit of, going back to that one single source of the truth. Yes, she's an HR business partner, but ultimately, if I was logged on as a manager or an employee, the look and feel is the same. It's your security is just driven around what you're allowed to see and do. So she can start to see some various different actions that are available to her. So we've got things like the compensation review. So again, global capabilities there, multi-currency, but obviously driven by what you have, been given as a security profile. There's other areas around journeys, required learning. So again, just bringing in that one system record, that core system of record, talent, learning, recruiting, compensation, all in that one place. Then we also have things around important dates. So again, just to keep her top of mind of anything that's coming up, some top apps, which we'll look at in just a second, some team highlights. So again, we can start to see that there's some team learning that's due, timely suggestions, asking her to look at her most recent Peakon engagement score, for example. So again, some really just, as I say, front of mind information to keep her on top of those day-to-day roles and jobs. But then what we also have here is things like announcements. So being able to push out various different announcements, not just HR related, can be payroll related, can be country driven, can be driven by job profiles, locations, whatever you want. So again, that communication piece within Workday is very, very powerful. We also have up here in the top left-hand corner the menu. So again, we can start to see the areas that she's got access to, benefits, recruiting, compensation, time. And as Neil mentioned, it's that one single source of the truth, bringing everything into this one place. And that does also include global payroll as well, albeit, as we've mentioned, there's only the native payrolls that Workday supports within the technology, but you'll see today how we can bring all of that good data in the one place. Some shortcuts that are available to her here, and the reason why I wanted to come into the shortcuts is into this global library. Now, we talked about, sort of expanding, mergers, acquisitions and such. Organizations are always, trying to constantly think, what do we need to do? What type of data do we need to capture? Albeit that, we are in multiple countries, we need to pass data through to, Safeguard, for example. What kind of data are they going to need? Because HR and payroll do share a lot of that data. So I just wanted to touch on this global library, for example. I've just got a filter saved there for Sweden, because you may not necessarily be aware of this. This is already in Workday, and you have the ability to choose any country and view the library. And what it will do is it will show you what type of localization that we have within Workday, and this is something that we're delivering on your behalf. We work with organizations and partners that are keeping on top of things changing within countries. We're working with them very closely, but some standard things around, sort of address formats and such, postal code validations. Again, some of this can cause some issues further on down the line, downstream applications, for example. But things like time off and leave, so being able to push some standard capabilities out to you. We've got some Swedish annual leave, vacation, family leave, parental leave, and these will change from country to country as well. So again, getting all of that good data, that global data in that one place. And also just wanted to touch on time tracking, for example. Time, again, sometimes is not necessarily viewed as an HR function, if you like, but ultimately we have the ability to provide that global time tracking capability. So having core HR data along with performance, talent, time, absence and payroll all in Workday. I just have a little bit of background noise, so if anyone is on not on mute, if you wouldn't mind, as I say, just a little bit of background noise there. So I just wanted to, sort of touch on that global library. We're talking about risk and so forth. If you're looking to expand, then ultimately, Workday's got you. We can help in areas around, as I say, that compliance piece and risk and audit as well, as I say, which Neil has been speaking about. But I just wanted to jump across to another user. We've got Ella Phillips here. She's a UK payroll administrator, payroll manager within the organisation. And I just wanted to touch, obviously, we've talked about native payrolls in Workday. That's that full gross to net capability. That's currently sitting at the UK, the US, Canada and France. We do have 2 additional countries, Australia that is actually being launched pretty much as we speak, and Germany is a little bit further on down the line. But again, we are expanding those. I don't see us expanding into many more countries. So again, we do need to be able to communicate with our great partners such as Safeguard for those other countries. But just to touch on a little bit of that native payroll, if I come into our payroll control hub here for Ella, she's looking at the various different sort of tabs along the top. So HR payroll changes, so looking at inputs for the period, for example, we've got things like terminations, what's happened around job changes, new hires, and these are things that you may not necessarily be getting involved in, but they will impact payroll. So you do need to understand what's changing and why. So it's full visibility, and that data is flowing through from those different functional areas. Under payroll processing, we're getting a really good snapshot view here around where payroll is sitting, what's happening, what statuses that we're sitting at in terms of that calculation process. So we've processed 35 people, but there's been some activities around 3 people that need, sort of recalculations as such. So we can jump into these and we can identify who those are, utilize the smart calculation within Workday to rerun those calculations continuously if we wanted to. And then we've also got things like the preview of smart calculations. So again, yes, we're running calculations, but full reporting capabilities to identify what are those workers, what's changed, what needs to be identified, what do we need to start to focus our attention on. So we've got things like terminations also sitting here as well. And then also things like pay period comparisons, and looking at things like accounting summary. So straight out of the gate, you have the ability to see the general ledger and the financial impact that payroll is costing. And then ultimately, once payroll has been produced, a general ledger on top of that for your financial system, or passing it through to Workday Financials. And just lastly, just wanted to touch on this audit and post payroll. So this is just giving us a little bit of an understanding around the gross to net, for example, but ideally bringing you down here to that audit summary. So what are your boundaries around those payrolls? What are those critical informational warning boundaries do you want to be notified about? Communicating with users within Workday to say, okay, something's happened. If I touch on critical here, we've got national minimum wage capabilities. So it's just, again, just saying what, something needs to be done with this particular person, but this is all within Workday and, being managed through that native payroll. But yes, we do recognise that there are countries that are outside of those 4 countries and the additional ones that are to come, and that's really the powerful partnership that we have with Safeguard. So I'll sort of bring it back to Neil and let him continue on with the presentation. But any thoughts on that, Neil, before you talk about the consolidation of payroll data?
Yeah, I mean, it's such a short snippet.
Yes.
We could go on, right? I mean, that's the beautiful thing there. I mean, the thing that we find for most of our customers or people that are embarking on this journey is this area right here is the area that you can really build a really strong business case, because this is the real cost saving, the area, where organizations, have so many manual processes, and, sometimes they don't even know what they've got. We see organizations, saving up, data capture in Workday, build to gross data, upwards of 80% once it's configured. And obviously that varies on different countries, etc. And obviously, if you introduce Workday's time component, then you're enriching it even further. So, what what you just illustrated there for me is the enrichment, auditability, visibility, you know, and what you're doing is really creating global standards. So it's really cool. But what's also cool is global reporting. So trying to normalize and harmonize your data. So, you know, today, you know, if you haven't gone through this, you might have a business intelligence tool that you may be plugging in. Maybe you've just got loads of manual, you know, spreadsheets today that you're trying to normalize that data for your CFO who wants to understand the workforce costs over the last 3 months in your chosen currency. That process can take so long. So without consolidating your OPEX reporting within sort of, you know, your HCM, pay data might be scattered, like I just mentioned, across various platforms and softwares. With this fragmentation, what happens is it increases your risk of data accuracy due to that manual data entry or inconsistent formats or potential delays in updating those various records. You know, lack of centralizing control could lead to discrepancies in labor costs, benefits, expenses, and other payroll related expenditure. With this decision makers' lack of insight into areas such as overtime spending, benefits utilization, it really limits and hinders strategic decisions. So, you know, we've heard stories of organizations sort of trying to compile that data, but it's taking, you know, month, 2 months to capture it and consolidate it. Well, that time's passed. And now you've got to do it again to, you know, so it's an ongoing process. But as we just mentioned, you know, the beautiful thing is that this is already configured and built in Workday. We've already built it. All it requires is the configuration to allow organizations to gain that insight into their workforce costs in their chosen currency and be able to drill down into certain sections. So, you know, integrating, consolidating your reporting within Workday really increases the accurate, up-to-date data available for decision makers. And like I mentioned earlier, it brings those departments together. So, you know, you can really start to analyze the information. So, you know, just a real simple example could be, you know, you notice that one of your countries is paying overtime at 2x for the last 3 months. You know, you're able to capture that immediately and go, oh, wow, now we're over our budgets. You know, what's going on there? Well, now you're working with your different departments. You know, HR may have a hiring problem. You know, you planned a 60-day hire, but now you're at 90. You know, that's going to have an impact to that overtime. But you may have another facility where you know, maybe have teams on the bench that you can maybe start to reallocate some of that workforce or workload to different locations, which obviously in turn is going to allow you to, you know, improve profitability or EBITDA for the business. You know, and that's where it becomes really strategic when teams come together and analyze that information, because now you're working as a team to come up with solutions that you can propose to the business to make those impacts. So for me, you know, the first section that Sean just demonstrated is where you can really demonstrate hard dollar savings because you're removing the administration burden and risk. This area is sort of like the soft dollar savings that can really become the big hard dollar savings if you use that data the way that you could potentially in, you know, reallocation of workforce, making sure that you're capturing that overtime component and addressing it sooner rather than later. You know, it does make a huge impact for organizations. But also by having that information, you know, as David was mentioning, we've got future technologies coming, AI, ML. You know, I know that Workday has some awesome applications as well, you know, with Prism, you know, and adaptive, you know, looking at forecasting and, you know, behaviors and trends to support some of those decision components as well. But again, you know, I want Sean to show this because this is the exciting part for me, is having the ability to see your data in one currency across the globe is so impactful. I hope you guys agree.
Yeah, no, this is actually a game changer, Neil. So I've been in payroll for many years, and there's always the struggle. You know, HR and payroll have been separated in so many ways. You know, from not just from reporting. Sometimes payroll's in finance and HR are doing their own thing, but just sharing that data as well, and being able to bring not only pass all of the correct data to you guys, but then bringing that back into Workday to have all of that visibility and insight, and making the decision making so much easier, I think is an absolute game changer. And a lot of the systems, HR systems out there, doesn't have the ability to digest this information. So let's go and have a look at that. So I've jumped back into Logan McNeil. And we've got our global third-party payroll dashboard that we saw a little bit earlier. So I just wanted to dive in here very quickly and just start to give you a look and a feel around what the capabilities are. So, so this dashboard, very similar to what we were looking at from that native payroll as Ella for UK. But as we say, there are other other countries outside of those four that we need to process, that you need to process as organisations, if you're growing your business as well. So this, as I say, a couple of different tabs at the top here, which are driving sort of various bits of information and decision making, if you like. So the transactions to view, very similar to what we saw as Ella, but we're now looking at other countries. So Stockton, for example, Mulhouse, Lyon, Sydney, Munich, those type of things, leave of absence requests. So what we're looking at here is that data. Not only are we capturing the right data, but we're also capturing those transactions as well and passing those to Safeguard. They need to know about job changes. They also need to know about leave of absence requests, compensation changes, for example, time off. So again, we're looking at what are those data changes and what data is being passed through to Safeguard for them to do that number crunching for that gross to net. The integration process, we're looking at, what has been sent and when it was sent, but we're also getting, really quite, sort of forward thinking and proactive with this data as well, because not only are we seeing global payroll results, we're seeing, what are the workers that have been sent to Safeguard, for example, what are the worker changes. So again, we can drill into this information. We can start to see, okay, yeah, this was a business process, but we need to make sure that this comp change went through. We can see here for Chloe, for example, that effective change, we can drill into the information, and the comp change, the reason being cost of living, for example. What was the prior value? What was the current value? We're seeing this all in the one place. Yes, we could go to the individual profile of Chloe, but ultimately bring it and bringing it front and center to make sure, yep, these are the data changes that have been passed through. The third-party payroll errors by severity. So again, being proactive with that and streamlining that process. If I was to drill into some of these, for example, sending information to China, we're looking and it's given us an error that's saying that the actual basic pay is greater than 0 for someone that's on leave, for example. This is all data, we're passing it through. Safeguard are passing these errors back to us going, actually, there's a problem with this. So it's not right at the end of the pay period. We're not being reactive to it. We're being proactive and starting to say, okay, was there a problem with this? What do we need to do within Workday in order to, sort this out, for example? If I click into errors for Germany, we can see that there's no payment or effective payment elections found. So bank details. Again, rather than the employee ring up and say, I haven't been paid this month, we're being proactive and looking at this data and making sure that that correct data is being sent. So kind of, as I say, transactions to view, looking at what's been changed, what's been sent through the integration process. Safeguard have done all that fantastic work around the individual countries. They're sending that data, the payroll results, that gross to net, pay slips, tax documents, all back into Workday to allow us to start to analyze and review around, what are our costs? So, looking at average base salary compared with, jobs, for example. We've got a global labor cost analysis bit of information here. So we're blending native payrolls, so the US and UK, France, with the other third-party countries. This is payroll data, so we're looking at gross. We're looking at overtime. We've got employer pay deductions here. That's, that's data that Workday hasn't processed. That's been done by Safeguard, but we have a place to put it. So it's all bringing it into that one place and allowing us to, streamline, as I say, the HR efficiencies, improved planning and budgeting. So again, we've got some great information here that we can start to analyze. And that takes me, not only just looking at that sort of, isolation of global payroll, we can start to bring that into our plan, execute and analyze. So we can, we've got our, sort of higher information here. Do we borrow? Do we acquire? This is all data. And when you're trying to make those decisions as an organization, you want to make sure that you're basing it on the current and the real-time data, which absolutely, Workday is. So looking at headcount plan to pipeline, before Workday, lots of organizations said to me, I don't even know what our headcount is. I don't even know what our plan would be. Neil's mentioned all of our, applications, adaptive planning, allowing you to build those plans, bring them into Workday, and then obviously just try and track where we're sitting. How are we hiring? Are we doing a good job? Are we at 60 days? Are we at 90 days? Are we more than that type of thing? So we've got some really good, as I say, insight. Do we borrow? Do we buy, sort of that labour talent? What do we need to do from an organisation perspective? We've got workforce cost visibility here. So being able to drill into the differences between potentially employees, or if you have contingent workers, again, organizations were even struggling to identify if they had contingent or contract workers within their organization before Workday. So we can capture this data, analyze it, look at what we're, look at the comp versus the performance, for example. So I'm just looking at this by location, for example. So we can start to maybe highlight Amsterdam as an area. But, again, what are we looking at? We can see that there's a count of, 18. Does that split down into contingent and employees, for example? So all of this drillable capability, straight out the gate. We're not having to rewrite reports over and over again. We're just slicing and dicing the data just to drill in and then, as I say, help us to make those decisions. So again, if we were looking at, Amsterdam, we could start to see, if we wanted to expand in this particular region or country, what are we looking like from a compensation perspective? We're also bringing performance into this particular report as well, but we can see here, a cost, of comp per worker just under the £70,000. What is it like from a contingent worker perspective? Oh, actually, they're a little bit higher. Who are these two people, for example? And we can view the details. How long have they been with us? And so forth. Is it time to maybe look to bring them in as, an actual worker, or is it, do we need to actually start to bring them and bring in more talent because that is, cheaper from a payroll perspective? So again, it's, this is all great data, as Neil's, mentioned. We're just scratching the surface here, giving you food for thought around how the system can be used. But ultimately, you can also push this out to managers to help them manage their own regions, countries, if you will, but ultimately have that holistic global view. So again, I'll switch back to Neil, and just so that you can start to tee up that user experience. But anything to add on this this area, Neil?
You're on mute, Neil.
Oh. Did we lose Neil?
Yeah, I think we've lost Neil's
audio.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I can carry on. So that user experience and obviously increasing user adoption, it's something that we really strive for. from a user experience in terms of not only that employee, but also manager, HR business partner, payroll.
Okay, can you hear me?
Oh, yes, Neil, we can do, yes.
Sorry, I apologize. I don't know what happened there. Sorry, audience.
No worries. No worries.
Yeah, sorry, I was just saying, just on what you just presented there, I mean, the level of detail blows my mind every time I see it, you know, because the simple component for anyone in the audience today is probably, you know, just the basic function of, I just want to normalize the word salary consistently so that I can get to that data across the board. So, you know, hopefully that sort of blew everyone else's mind, because it always does for me, you know. And you know, you could probably spend another 2 hours, and maybe we should do another webinar just on how you can cut up this data and use it. But for me, the outcome component is really, it's transforming payroll from transactional to be really strategic. To Sean's point, you know, we all, you know, in payroll love Excel, you know, we live and breathe in Excel, but you know, having the ability at your fingertips and being able to provide information at a higher level, and leaders on the call, you know, being able to gather that information and provide the insight back to the business in your MBRs or your QBRs is so valuable for the business. So I just wanted to say that. And then lastly, because we're coming up on time, is we also, you know, want to talk about the impact to the employees, right? I mean, it's so important that, you know, how payroll, you know, can also help other departments around just payslip. So, you know, what are the challenges if you haven't integrated your payslips into your HCM? Well, employees, you know, generally, you know, going to be looking to make localized requests. Hey, could I have my pay slips for the last 3 months because I want to get a loan? Or, hey, I've forgotten my password. And in some countries, you may actually also have paper-based pay slips as well. So very rare now, but, you know, there are a few countries that still require it. But, you know, there is no consistent approach for the workforce. And there's no purpose for them to go into the core HCM if they're getting no value. You know, the value for anyone on this call, you know, when they get paid, generally we always go and have a quick look at our pay slip. You know, that's generally what happens. So by pushing your pay slips into Workday, you know, and again through this certified integration, you know, the value components for, you know, the organization is huge, because now you're driving your workforce into the application. And anyone that, you know, I think everyone on this call is a Workday user. You all know the experience. It's intuitive. You go into Workday and it tells you where to look. It gives you notifications of things that you need to do or need to engage with. You know, the cool thing about, obviously, you know, by doing that, you're also now able to run surveys, you know, because your workforce is now in the application. You know, I think everyone is probably feeling some of the pain around, you know, workforce in a general sense. You know, there is a shortage of it. There's been a major shift and change in that type of workforce. So retention is so important. So driving, you know, your workforce to the application, getting them to engage and give you feedback around, you know, what they would like in their workplace, hopefully will drive retention. And also by doing that, you know, you're going to minimize some of the workload within your HR administrating team as well, because now the workforce can go in and change their marital status, change their home address, change their bank account details. All the administration burdens that today may be manual at a localized level is all now going into Workday. So it's a single process. You know, so again, we're just going to do a quick short demonstration. So I'm going to hand over to Sean just to illustrate some of those capabilities.
Yes, yeah, no, thanks, Neil. And just while we're doing that, I'm just going to log out and log back into another user here. But ultimately, you know, everything you said is you know, is absolutely true. You know, Workday, we work really heavily on the user experience just to make sure that it's user friendly. You know, I'm I'm typical. If I download an app or what have you, if I can't use it within the first 5 minutes, I delete it. I'm quite fickle like that. So in terms of sort of logging on using Workday, I love it. And it's one place for everything. Typically when we go to organisations that are just starting out their journey talking to Workday, they're saying they've got an app for HR, an app for payrolls, or a browser for expenses and recruiting, and we're just bringing that all into that one place. And I think just by logging on to Katrina here, or Katarina, sorry, she's based in Stockholm. Again, just another show of the global capabilities of Workday. She's got some supplier invoices here, and obviously in her local currency. But as an employee, if I look down the menu, we've got our benefits and pay, which I'll touch on in just a second. Career, so mapping out the career that she's has with her organisation. It's all in this one place. Expenses, I have to make a quick plug for our expenses. I love it. They're so simple to use, just in terms of getting that data in, interactions with credit cards and such. So it does make my life so much easier, and I'm often out and about and stuff. Absence, that well-being, people want to take their their leave and their holiday and such. So just being able to have that one place to go to is amazing. And that shouldn't be any different for a country that Workday doesn't support from a payroll perspective. So ultimately, yes, in Stockholm, we're not supporting that country, but Katarina as a user shouldn't be none the wiser of that. Her app of choice is Workday for all things HR, payroll, self-service, time, and so forth. And I wanted just to drive into our benefits and pay hub here, because as I say, she is none the wiser that Workday hasn't processed her payroll. We are bringing in data from Safeguard to populate things like her most recent pay, for example, but ultimately she can see any of the benefits, her total rewards, for example, one-time payments and bonuses and such. But really, as I say, it's engaging the workforce, making sure that they're coming into Workday, utilising the tool so that you're getting your return on investment, taking that burden off of HR. As Neil was mentioning, just a small address change, it impacts payroll, a name change, a marital status, it impacts payroll. They can do all of this. We give them ownership of their data. Obviously, it is driven by business process framework, so you've got the tool there to make sure that the steps that Workday's taking is sending it to the right people for visibility and approvals and such. But ultimately, as I say, we've got the ability to bring those pay slips and tax documents back into Workday. So she's got that one place. We can see here that most recent take-home pay, for example. If she wanted to see this in a little bit more of a slightly different format, providing reports and bar charts and things. So where's her peaks and troughs? So again, very visual for that worker and for that user experience, but absolutely being able to drill down to that finite detail as well. Identify, look at these pay slips and those breakdowns. And this is all available in the mobile app as well. I didn't want to add any more complexity to the webinar to show the mobile app, but so just stuck with the browser. But ultimately, as I say, anything that I've been doing, through the browser is available with the mobile app as well. And as I say, even if people are struggling to find things in Workday, we've got our assistant. So even if I was just to type in payslip here, for example, it's going to say, yeah, I'm finding this particular page. This was your last payday, and drives us straight back to that particular screen there. So as I say, real, high grade usability, engaging with that worker, one place to go, everything that we've been talking about, and hopefully taking that burden off of HR.
Thank you, Sean. Yeah, I mean, just a quick summary for everyone, what you've seen today, and obviously we've only touched on the surface of it. What we've been able to show is, how you can create global standards, drive efficiency, reduce risk, provide visibility and insight into your workforce, increase your user adoption and engagement of your workforce. The way that we see it is a full cycle approach, bringing departments together for greater decision making. And Workday, Cognizant, Safeguard have done this hundreds, if not thousands of times. So I'm going to hand over to David, who's got something cool that he wants to share with you.
Brilliant. Thanks, Neil. Thanks, Sean. And thanks, Danny, for kicking off. So, as mentioned, we've cantered through this at quite a pace. We've covered a lot today. So again, good to have some interaction, see some chat popping up on the Q&A as well. So we start out with some global trends. So hopefully feel like you're not alone if you are embarking on some of this and some of the challenges that people face. But we've also got down into practically showing you there are tools out there to help you. These things already exist. So the real examples that we just walk you through. So why wouldn't you be wanting to actually use those as part of your implementation if you're currently planning or thinking about optimizing what you want to do in global work payroll? So Cognizant do a lot of work in this space, and we can support you through all different stages. But if there's one thing I'd hope you take away from a strategic point of view, is focus on that readiness phase. So spend some time there to really think through what it is you want to do, because they say these tools are out there, these things are there. You just need to make sure you've got the buy-in from your leadership, that you've got the time and the budget and the understanding of these in your readiness phase, so you can plan them out effectively for your organization. So every company is different. You're all in different places on your journey. But there are common themes that come out. So you're having an agreed payroll strategy lets you take that holistic view to make sure you can actually squeeze as much value out of it as you possibly can. Having a roadmap, talking through integrations, getting that leadership buy-in, getting all your data in one point and get those integrations to work for you so you can actually then start using your data for more interesting and strategic things. It's just going to pay dividends. But just spending that time in that readiness phase to actually work through that and talk with people. So reach out to your customer service manager, reach out to your sales account lead to actually get some advice, get some input on that. And as a final thing, at Cognizant, we're going to offer 10 free discovery sessions. So we'll send out a note at the end of this to have a recording of this. It's got the links in it. And if you register, the first 10 people that register, we can actually set up an hour-long session just to talk through some aspects of what you want, what's concerning you around a payroll implementation. It could be putting together an effective payroll strategy. It could be particular key pain points you want to work on, or because you've got a fragmented leadership group across the different organizations and territories you're working in, is it all about getting leadership alignment to get buy-in and that sort of thing? We've discussed many of those aspects with lots of clients over the years, and it's something that we can really focus in. So hopefully that will be able to help you as well. So once you get that email, have a look at it, register if you've got something that you're interested in talking around with one of our strategy and transformation consultants. So just to close, we are bang on the air, so perfect timing from everybody. So I'd like to thank all the speakers, and especially Sean and Neil, for actually really providing a fascinating, informative, engaging session, and also for all the attendees. So for your energy, if you're interested in your enthusiasm on this, and good luck in anything else you want to take forward in global payroll, and hopefully we will be speaking to you soon. So thanks, everybody.
Thank you.